brands sort of forgot about that people are communities. They forgot that people, like, you know what I mean? It's like in
Yeah.
marketing, it started like past 50 years. It's all about like individuals. I'm targeting individuals. And, like, oh, this persona, like Nicole is XYZ, she likes this, she goes that. It's like, no, 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 no. That's a composite. That's a community. Because what's the most important human characteristic is to show off in front of others, to signal your status in front of others, to measure yourself
Mm.
against others in a certain way. Very rarely, we don't exist in a vacuum. We are influenced by others and we influence others.
You talked about a four C's framework, and you sort of visibly lit up and got very excited about it when you were talking about it. I'd love for you to share that with our listeners today.
It's basically something I developed, I think, a couple of years ago. Because when you look at, like, in technology, you have full stack, and not to go to operational, but in terms of like brand building, you kind of look like before you had the brand book and a brand system, and the logo was very important, color palette was important, the font and all. It's all important. Like, still, it's still there. But you know what? Like the font and the logo, they don't build the brand. Even the brand name doesn't build the brand. Yes,
Mm.
it's great when the name is great, but even with a shit name, if you hit that like one, like, I don't know, something in people's minds, you can even, like, like, look at Disney. What does Disney mean? Disney means now amazing things, because millions and millions of association over the years and years, through experiences, through those entertainment amusement parks and the movies, that gave that name equity. Before, it was name of some guy. That's what led me to really thinking about, like, well, how brands are created in a dialogue, and how brands are created in the wild, how they're created in the world, really. And for me, that was basically, you start from content, and you say, hey, what is the content that we create at the intersection of audience interests, cultural interests, and brand interests, like those three. How
Mm.
do we create a content that has editorial point of view, and that really tells a story, not just about ourselves, but about the time we live in, and about the people, humanity, basically, not just like our customers, but overall find one angle and really own it. And then how does that content deliver value even before people buy a single product or use a service from a brand? If you go and look at Goop, there's so much content there. It's like a lot of woo woo and new age but you don't need to buy any of the expensive stuff. You can just read some of that stuff. You can find recipes, and it's more about not only telling you what lifestyle to have, but enabling you to have that lifestyle.
Mm.
That's what content does. And then the second thing is curation, which is, I wrote a lot about curation and why curators are the new influencers. And it really boils down to asking, how do we amplify our cultural influence by joining forces with other things that our audience is interested in, or with other things that, like, urban customer or suburban customer is interested in? And when we collaborate, it's not really like a brand gloss. It's a transformation of the brand operating system, because your
Mm.
awareness strategy, your customer acquisition strategy, your retention strategy starts to be tied with that brand collaboration, and your business strategy is tied to brand collaboration when you create new products and you distribute them and you market them differently.
What do you think is the essence of a really good brand collaboration? Something that builds in that meaning and helps those kind of consumers, versus something where someone just is trying to, you can feel they're just trying to buy some cool, or they're just trying to buy some audience or some reach, and the collaboration isn't really a deep or fundamental one.
Collaborations are not really brand extensions, and I think it's a big mistake to treat them as such, because if you think about brand extension, everything needs to be very consistent. And when you think about best collaborations, like Heron Preston and Moon toothpaste, or Mucinex and Steven Allen, or when you look like at something that's like completely on the borderline of kitsch, it makes no sense. It's a replica of something like real. That is when you really start to
Mm.
understand how this culture operates. In that, incongruity is paramount, because that is what is attention grabbing. That is what contextualizes the brand for the new audience. If you do things that are super consistent with your brand, you're always going to hit on the same audience. If you do something crazy, you're going to become part of cultural conversation, for one. And the second one, you will attract those who will never consider you otherwise. And I think that is the key for collaborations, is really
Mm.
going outside of your usual framework.
I was looking at the Allbirds and Adidas sort of collaboration that they've done, which I find quite interesting. That there's this big kind of established company, kind of leveraging the ground that the small sort of upstart has created, and they kind of, both of them are using each other in an interesting way. So Allbirds is using it to become a household, like more of a household name and less kind of in the niche sustainability realm, and Adidas is using it to almost evolve their brand image and what they kind of working in, and it's part of all of this sort of kind of new age thinking that they're doing on that brand.
Right, but that's very connected with who their brand is. So that's more of a brand
Hmm.
extension. So they're like, hey, we want to stay relevant. We want to like really like stay on the top of mind. So we are going to partner. But like at the end of the day, people are buying sneakers. So they're buying sneakers.
Hmm.
But when they do something like Heron Preston and Moon toothpaste, it like, okay, so I'm buying the toothpaste by Heron Preston, who is a fashion designer. Like, what am I really buying here? I'm not buying a toothpaste.
Hmm.
Like, I'm buying a piece of art. I'm like, this brand is completely, both brands are recontextualized. They're put in the domain of art,
Hmm.
because when you buy art, you don't think, what is it good for? How am I going to use it? You buy it because of its meaning, if and its exchange value and its sort of cultural currency. Brand sort of forgot about that people are communities. They forgot that people, like, you know what I mean? It's like in
Yeah.
marketing, it started like past 50 years. It's all about like individuals. I'm targeting individuals. And like, oh, this persona, like Nicole, is XYZ, she likes this, she goes that. It's like, no, 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 no. That's a composite. That's a community. Because what's the most important human characteristic is to show off in front of others, to signal your status in front of others, to measure yourself
Hmm.
against others in a certain way. Very rarely, we don't exist in a vacuum. We are influenced by others and we influence others. So in that sense, it's like community
Hmm.
is really the core unit of marketing, not the individual. So we have then community, because the most successful brands really piggyback on already existing communities. And why is that important? It's when, for example, when we launched Vintage Shop for Banana Republic, there is like so much interest over, like, Banana Republic is 40-year-old brand, and when they started, they had this like, they're almost like the mother of streetwear. When you go to the archives, you have all those T-shirts. They have like these crazy logos and crazy prints and crazy images of like planes and like jeeps, and just they just feel so modern. You open the archive and you're like, holy shit, this was from 1978. Like, and so in that sense, a lot of people held on to that those products and that idea becomes like folklore, and becomes a story as the time goes by. So there's a lot of social communities like Abandoned Republic or Banana Republic Vintage that are the stylists that those in the know are using. So we're like, okay, great, we're going to tap into that community of people who were kids or who were in high school around when Banana Republic used to be really, really cool. And
Hmm.
we're going to remind them and tap into that nostalgia. That's what I was saying before, in terms of brand building, how you really need to understand the cultural moment, and if nostalgia is really big, and if people feel safe in the past because of everything that's going on with COVID and climate and all of the climate change and all of that. It's more about how do you capitalize then on that and see, oh, so we have those communities, we know that they're definitely going to be interested in this. And then you go and you see, well, like what else, like who else? And we're like, well, Gen Z really likes thrift shops, and they really like selling to each other, and it's all about for them like vintage finds. And all social currency is really related, not like about the spending money, but about that like resale shopping and having a taste to know what to buy. So we're like, okay, we're going to hit on those two targets, and they already exist. So we absolutely hit on them. And it was, in that sense, it was strategically a no-brainer that
Hmm.
that we can tap into those passions. And that is exactly what the strategy is with the community. How do you tap in the already existing passion of your audience?
I think the concept of community is such a daunting one because you can't just set it up and then leave it alone. It's something that needs to be kind of generated and pushed and continually done, and it's almost difficult to the brands to do that. So by finding other people who are already doing that, they're already managing and driving their own communities because of something that interests them, it becomes an interesting or a kind of mutually beneficial exchange.
If you start building community from scratch, it's first of all, you don't know if it's going to succeed, because you can be like, hey kids, I'm new, I'm cool, come hang, and that is like, okay, yeah, maybe they will, maybe they don't, like. But like, if you build upon what communities have already organically been created, then the chances of success are much higher, especially if there is that alignment in values and in interest. It doesn't mean you come in and you're kind of like, oh, now I care about you, what you care. It's you can't hack that process. You can't There is no shortcuts. Community building takes a really long time. Like, even in my original example for Banana
Mm.
Republic, we're talking about people who are in their 50s, because they were like in the 70s, they were at the late 70s, they were maybe 12, 13, like. And it's that nostalgia later from the 80s, so it takes a long time for that affinity to be created.
Hello, YouTube. I'm Ross Drakes. I'm the founder of Nicework, and thank you so much for your time at watching this video. If you're seeing me, it means you made it all the way to the end, so we've at least done something right. If you enjoyed this, we'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up. It really helps the channel. And I think more important than that is if you know someone who might need to hear this, if you think someone out there who needs this message in their life, please spread the link, because it makes a huge difference to the world, and it allows us to fulfill our message of making sure that there are no more bad brands in the world. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you in the next video.